My dear Safas, we are in trouble. It seems like in April, when Trump announced that there will be brand new tariffs basically applied across the world to every single country, with every single country's tariffs being somewhat different and tailored to that country and specifically the trade that that country does with the US. South Africa stood to have tariffs of up to 31% slapped on pretty much every single one of its goods. Shortly after that announcement, the Trump administration announced a 90-day reprieve in which countries could come to the United States and offer deals. Specifically, what Trump was eyeing here were zero tariff trade deals with, I think, select partners, countries like the EU, countries like the UK, maybe even countries like China, and effectively almost all countries throughout the world rushed to Trump and to the United States to try and get these deals sort of made. Just want to say a huge thank you to all of the supporters and patrons of this channel. By becoming a member or a patron, you help support the news that we bring and also allow me to do even more in the future. So huge shout out to all of you. Thank you. Anyways, enjoy the video. Bye. The South African delegation and the South African government first tried to pound its chest and sort of pretend like we don't care about this. Ultimately, they finally did send Ramaphosa and a bunch of delegates down to the United States in the White House. And you all remember the infamous White House meeting where it did not go so well because while Ramaphosa wanted to talk about all the money that the United States could be giving South Africa, Trump wanted to talk about other things. So, the deal or the conversation did not go that well for Cyril Ramaphosa. Since then, the South African government has had its 90 days to come up with a trade deal with the United States of America. It did not, and it seemingly did almost nothing. There are now calls across the country from people asking, what the hell did you guys do in these 90 days? Why didn't you engage with the United States? Why didn't you go to Trump and offer him a deal? It would truly be simple. All South Africa has to say is, look, we'll give the United States open access to our markets. We no longer care. For South Africans like you and me, this would be one hell of a W, just FYI, because graphics cards, we get those from American companies. Mobile phones, we get those from American companies, because while they're manufactured in China, they are ultimately belonging to American companies. So we would have won big on a non sort of tariff trade deal with the United States, because a lot of the stuff we consume here is produced or at least made by American companies. Instead, we delayed. And now we're at a point, and this is sort of just indicative of what happens in South Africa all the time. Everything just gets left to the last minute. In 1998, the South African government is told, hey, Eskom is going to implode if we continue to connect more homes to it without building new power stations. What does the South African government do? Well, they do nothing until Eskom implodes, and then suddenly it's a rush to try and build power stations. But of course, they have to figure out how do all the cadres steal from all of these power stations. Never mind that, but you guys get the point, right? Fundamentally, we did the exact same thing here. Now we're pleading the Trump administration to not slap the tariffs on us, to give us a little more time. And now we find out, and this is why I said it's so frustrating to live in this country and look at this government, because last week, it seems, was the first time that one of our representatives actually met with people at the White House. After 90 days of having the opportunity to change our minds, to discuss with the US, we finally find out, right, that the Trump administration is coming up with a new framework for dealing with African nations. And it's in this piece right here. And African nations will have a completely different framework to deal with the United States than any other country in the world, which kind of makes sense. If you look, for example, at the trade between South Africa and the United States doesn't stand to lose that much. A lot of the stuff that they buy from us to do us a favor, not because they can't get this stuff from literally anywhere else. And we already know that a lot of African nations have struck deals with the United States, and a lot of African nations like Kenya, for example, Malawi, these countries were in America not that long ago, striking trade deals and sort of giving the United States access to their markets. And all of these countries can provide the United States with the stuff that South Africa can. But South Africa trades currently with the United States at around 8.3 to 10 billion US dollars every single year, which you might think, well, that doesn't sound that much. But remember, that is a large chunk of our actual trade. The only other country that we trade more with in South Africa is China. And the reason we trade more with China is because a lot of US companies make their stuff in China. So we buy that stuff directly from China. If we were to suddenly lose access to a lot of those things, because Trump's tariffs tend to work this way, if it's an American company, even if they're producing their stuff in another country, they'll slap the tariffs on that stuff as well. So that company will pay the tax, which means that company will just charge more in order to bring this stuff. So it's a weird thing, but the Trump administration genuinely wants to stop these companies from producing their stuff in China in the first place. So, there's a lot of stuff that can actually happen there from the perspective of the United States. But fundamentally, the big part for us is AGOA and the AGOA agreement. At best, if you look at, for example, where we stand on the AGOA agreement, if AGOA goes away, that's just citrus farming mostly, right, through the AGOA agreement. If that goes away, that's 35,000 jobs gone, immediately deleted from the economy. It's not like South Africa has that many jobs that it can stand to lose in our economy. And now you have, for example, the White House confirming.
The president was asked and answered this yesterday. He said he's not considering an extension or a delay. I spoke to him before this briefing. That was not his mindset. He expects that these tariffs are going to go into effect. And you said something very...
The White House will not extend the tariff window. So once the 90 days is up, if South Africa does not have a deal with America, it's over. We go home empty-handed. And we suddenly lose a lot. We lose a lot of jobs. We lose a lot of money, because the fact is, most of the stuff that America buys from South Africa, no other country wants, no other country needs. America is buying a lot of that stuff purely to help out. That's literally how these agreements work. The rest of the world is trying to get Africa to compete, trying to get Africa to finally make money. If that goes away, China isn't going to pick up the bill. The Chinese economy isn't in a position to really do that, right? The Chinese economy is struggling. Russia is going to be picking up the bill. We now have new reports that suggest that the Russian economy is in dire straits. South Africa is alone. You think Iran has money lying around to buy $10 billion worth of stuff from South Africa? No, they don't. If we lose these tariffs, South Africa goes to crap very, very quickly. And a lot of jobs lost, more impact on the economy, more government overreach, because the government has to take care of these new people that are now no longer working. And fundamentally, I don't think that's the only thing that's going to happen here. I think the Trump administration has big plans for the South African government, and it's not pretty, right? It's just not pretty. Let me know in the comment section down below how you feel on this. I will, of course, keep you up to date with any and all changes as they happen. As always, hit the like if you liked, the dislike if you didn't, and I'll see all of you in the next one. Peace.